The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
Well, I don't know if you're getting any rain in your neck of the woods, but it's
little.
flooding here in Southwest PA. Yeah, it's a tough time, but we're good here. My
Good.
family's okay. Everybody, like all my loved ones are all right, so it's a good morning.
That's
but
good.
just prayers for all those affected.
Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited because we're recording episode 60 today.
Episode 60.
Mhm.
And, it's interesting. Sweetie's settled into place in Delaware County in Norwood, Pennsylvania. Things seem to be kind of normalizing. We went through Christmas of 47 into 48. Joe and Marguerite visited. And it seems like, okay, like this is going to be their life. Louis is sick a little bit, probably a lot at times. But Lou's working at the base and things are totally normal. So things should be perfectly fine, except then we get to episode 60. And Jamie, the title of this episode is I'll Jump Right into the Trouble. So, yeah.
It
So
sounds like things might be shaken up a little bit.
Maybe we're going to shake some stuff up. That seems to be the case with Sweetie. Just when things are like kind of cruising, then we're going to shake it up. Something's going on. So life is never easy. I think that's what we've learned. And it was never a simpler time, as we've all been saying. But today we have 5 documents to go through. Some are letters, some are handwritten postcards. We're going to fill in, and we're going to very rapidly, after January of 48, we're very rapidly going to head towards the summer of 1948. There simply are not too many letters from this time period that survive. But we have a reason. I promise you, Sweetie always has a reason when she's not writing. It's either Louis is sick all the time or something big is going on. And it's just taking so much of her time away from writing. So yeah. I do think it's not due to a lack of letters. I think she simply did not have time to write a lot in the spring of 48. So we're going to go into all of that today with these 5 documents. And at the end of this episode, we're going to find ourselves in a different place. So we're going to go through that journey. But before we do so, Jamie, you have your coffee ready to go. Hopefully all of our listeners have their coffee, tea, drink of choice, as we go through today's episode. If you could please, if you're on YouTube, if you could please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, we very much appreciate that. If you're listening in on our audio channels, like if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could leave a review, we would appreciate that as well. If you're a new listener to the Love Sweetie podcast, welcome, as you join the storyline that's happening here. But Jamie, I think we should just jump right in. I liked your Queen's wave there.
Oh, thank you. For wonderful. The audio listeners, right?
For the audio listeners, Jamie's given a very wonderful sort of Queen's wave here. On the screen, the YouTube will see it. But yeah, going into February of 48. So let's do as Sweetie says and see what's going on here. 37 South Love Lane, Norwood, Pennsylvania, February 8th, 1948. Dear everybody, this will have to be pretty short if I'm to get it off to you right away, so without preliminaries, I'll jump right into the trouble. On Wednesday, I dropped the folks a card saying we were all having slight colds. That was the first day Louis showed any signs of a cold. Just a bark, no runny nose or fever. But I started in on the aspirin and continued until Thursday morning, when he awoke with a very heavy, labored breathing. That sort of worried me, so I kept him in bed, built a tent over his crib, and kept the vaporizer going full tilt all day. Continued the aspirin, too. Towards night, he showed a temp of 101. But it was the heavy, gaspy breathing that finally made me decide I'd have to take him to a doctor for my own peace of mind. Lou had the duty, so I asked a friend to drive us to the hospital. The doctor examined him and said he had a light tracheal bronchitis, that I was doing a fine job of home treatment and to continue, if his temp came up, to notify them again. Because he had so much difficulty in breathing, he didn't sleep well, and we were up to see about him every 20 minutes or half hour. Friday morning, he seemed better all the way around. The breathing wasn't so heavy, but I decided to keep him in bed with the vaporizer and aspirin, and I was much encouraged until about 1 o'clock Friday afternoon. He fell asleep for a nap, and when he woke up, at about 3:30, his temp had gone to 104. I immediately gave him an enema and aspirin, again, and called the doctor to at least talk to him. It turned out that he lived quite close by, and said, rather than bring him down there, he thought he'd just drop by and see him. He did, and said he seemed pretty good. His breathing was almost normal, his temp had dropped to about 102 by 7 o'clock, and he said, as the other doctor had said, keep up what you're doing, but if he still has a temp at about 8 in the morning, call me, and we'll look him over again. Well, I gave aspirin every 4 hours and kept the vaporizer going, and at midnight Friday night, his temperature was 105, no convulsions and no delirium. I started in again with the aspirin that was due at 12, an enema, and an alcohol sponge bath. By 3 a.m., it was 103.6, and he dropped off into a heavy sleep that lasted till 9 a.m., when I took his temp and found it was 101.6. Feeling very encouraged, I gave him half an aspirin, and at 9:30 his temp broke and remained at normal until just about 1 a.m., when he fell asleep again, and at 3:30 it was 104.6. Lou was home for Saturday and Sunday, so together we started in on enemas and alcohol rub that lasted for 30 minutes. And when at 4:30 I could see we were making no headway, I called the doctor and he said we'd have to take him to the hospital. We did. The pediatrician went over him quickly and called for the X-ray crew to come off Liberty to take X-rays of his chest. They took a blood count and started penicillin shots immediately. He definitely has pneumonia, right lower lobe. They took 3 X-rays as soon as they could locate the technician, and they let me take him into his room and take off his clothes and put on the hospital pajamas, and we stayed until after 8, when they told us we had to leave. He was lying quietly, just half awake and half asleep, saw us leave, but didn't protest. He was very obliging about holding his head this way, now that way, for the X-rays. He cried a little when they gave him the penicillin shot, and when they stuck his finger for the blood test, but other than that, he was just washed out and content to lie still. The nurses were very nice to him and to us, and while I hated to go and leave him, I'm sure he's better off there. We're going down to see him this afternoon, and I'll try to drop you a card immediately, but right now I want to go and call the hospital and see what they have to say, and I'll add that on right now. The nurses always says, oh, he's better this morning, he's doing fine. More later. Sweetie.
Poor Lewis is always sick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, and this is, now he has pneumonia. Like, this is serious.
Yep. When I saw the temperature at 105 in the letter, I'm like, whoa, go to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Jamie knows I am not a fan of going to the doctor, but if my temperature was 105, let alone a little kid's temperature was 105, it's like, no, this is not typical. So, time to go. And they did.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And they did when they needed to.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice, though, this time. You know, one of the last times she was incredibly upset and she was trying to get a hold of doctors, and 3 doctors were like, no, we're not coming to see you.
Right.
Just go to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So at least this time she did have a doctor visit, came and saw him, and she was doing everything that she should.
Yep.
And as she's a pro at this point, like knowing what she has to do with Lewis, but he definitely had to go to the hospital with that. I mean, and for my children, like if they have 101 temperature, I like to leave it. Because that's what a fever is for. A fever is to help, you know, help you get better and kill the things inside of you that are bad, kill whatever's making you have the fever. And so it's good to have a fever, but 105, yeah. And she said he didn't have any convulsions, no delirium, but he did have a febrile seizure before.
Yeah, previously. Yeah.
And that is related to temperature. So I'm really glad that hasn't, because if he would have done that again, she would have definitely mentioned this.
Right.
So that hasn't happened again. But oh goodness, like I just feel like it just feels like
this whole thing's recurring over and over again.
Yeah, constant.
And for our newer listeners, I know some of the listeners, of course, that have been following us the whole time, but for the new listeners, it's important to note there is no phone in Sweetie's house. That was not typical at the time. Not everybody had a phone. So the phone is actually outside in like another location on the sidewalk. She's noted before she has to go out to make a call, sort of like the phone booth kind of idea. So every single time she's trying to communicate with these doctors, she can't just do it, at home, even on a landline, right? We're all used to just cell phone call, telehealth at this point. Totally different those days. She's got to leave basically the patient and then wander out onto the sidewalk and make this phone call. Or at this point, hope one of the neighbors does have a phone so she doesn't have to be outside and have someone else watching. But it sounds like Lou was more around this weekend. Sometimes he's at the base and they were able to just quickly, no car trouble, thankfully, get over to the hospital.
Yeah, not this time.
Yep. And the x-ray crew had to come off of Liberty. Now, that's a whole other idea. And just also for newer listeners that might not know, they're going to the Naval Hospital in Philadelphia. So usually we don't just hear like, oh, the x-ray technicians, they're not there right now. They're not at the hospital. They're coming off of Liberty, meaning they're taking a break from having to be stationed at that moment because this is the Navy hospital. So the Navy x-ray crew is coming off of their time off, right, to come in and take x-rays. The pediatrician's like, yo, this is urgent. We gotta get over to the hospital and check out this kid. So that's how we start February of 1948 is with little Lewis with pneumonia in the hospital. And this is also the first time we hear about penicillin shots. Yay. Great. We did not hear about sulfa, but we get instead the upgrade. We go, oh, now we're penicillin shots. Oof. So.
Oh, got to bring out the big guns for the pneumonia.
Now, once she sends a letter that says all this, you know how family is going to react in Iowa, especially Chester and Jean being in the medical profession. Like, oh my God, we need updates. But again, no phone and long distance and no telegraph. So, postcard to Jean. February 9th, 1948, Sunday evening. We saw Lewis this p.m., and his progress is really amazing. I'm so darn happy about it, I could cry with relief. He felt as though his temperature were normal, though he is still a little worn out from the fever. I couldn't get anything from the nurse, so I'll pump the doctor in the morning when I call. He cuddled down in my arms, and it was hard to leave. He called me as we left, but I don't believe he cried very hard, as he did before. More later. Sweetie.
So that was the very next day.
Yep.
And he was doing a lot better.
He was. Yeah. The quick update to Jean. And she knows that once she gets word to Jean, Jean will get word to everybody else in Iowa. So, let's spread the news. But keep an eye on the dates here. She said he got sick in the first letter Wednesday. So now it's Sunday evening. So this has been going on for 4 days, but at least he's been in the hospital for at least a night. And we'll just continue with the next update we get here, which is from February the 13th. February 13th, 1948. Wednesday afternoon. Dear Jean, I've only one card, so you call sister, please. They stopped penicillin shots this morning. They are going to x-ray his chest to see if the lung congestion has dissipated enough. If so, and if there's no temperature rise, he'll be home in a day or two. I went to see him this afternoon, the first time since Sunday. He seems thin and has a bad cough. He cried very hard when I left, saying, "Bye-bye home, Mama." I nearly cried myself when I had to break his hold and leave. I'm not going back until he is released, which should be in a day or two, if all goes well. I'll write soon if I can. Love, Sweetie.
That is so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That is so... Okay, so he went into the hospital
I think it was like Saturday, basically Saturday,
Saturday. Yeah,
because
because
Sunday
Lou
night she
was
writes the
home.
note. Yep.
Mhm. And now it's Wednesday.
Now it's Wednesday. It's the week since he's been sick. He's
Mhm.
probably not going to be released for a day or two, which means he's in the hospital for almost a week, if not a week. Yeah.
And she's like, I
Mhm.
can't see him every day. And I'm
Mhm.
sure that when she goes and the better he feels,
Yeah.
yeah, and she
The harder to
realizes that
leave.
the better he feels, he wants to come home. And he's like, why are
Mhm.
you still leaving me here? I'm okay now.
Right. Mhm. Yeah. And he can talk more now. So that's the thing. Like some of the previous times, his communication skills, of course, he was younger. Now
Mhm.
it's like, I know you're leaving and I want to go with you. So now it's just even more heartbreaking because we can hear what he's absolutely thinking.
And about this time, how old is he now?
He is going to be 3 in September of 48. So
So
he's like
he's like
2.5.
2.
Mhm.
Oh, goodness. 2 and a
Mhm.
half. Oh, my
Yep.
goodness.
Mhm.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So, but, he's on the mend again.
He's on
He's
the mend.
obviously where he needed to be. She could
Mhm.
not do any more for him.
Yep.
So, yeah. So
Mhm.
this was good, but I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he's getting better. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, rough start medical wise for the year in 48. And then we're going to fast forward in time a little bit here. So we're going to move into March of 48. Sweetie has not written as much. She even notes she ran out of cards. That's the last card that she had to Jean. Why she didn't write letters between this letter, this note that we just heard, and the next letter that we're going to get, it's not exactly clear, but there's definitely a lot of things in motion. So we're going to let Sweetie tell the story for herself, but note that this letter is addressed to her parents.
37 South Love Lane, Norwood, Pennsylvania, March 20th, 1948. Dear Mama and Daddy, we've received your letter, and I shall try now to smooth out a few items and try to help in getting the plans rolling so that we can get started as soon as possible. The truck you spoke of sounds like a good thing. We will need to know the size of the truck so that we will be able to decide how much furniture we can bring, and of course in time to have things ready to go. You're right in that we will bring more of our stuff if the truck is large enough. We inquired of a transport company. The cost for 1,400 pounds would be about $150. Could it be arranged to pay for it at that end of the trip? I can't help but hope for the house Kathy cornered from you, for closeness, etc. But is it big enough for Lou to have a separate workroom? He keeps repeating his little prayer. I hope they can find something big enough. We really do need 2 bedrooms, as well as the workroom, living room, and kitchen. I don't like to sound high-handed in talking about wages, but with Lou's mother, the insurance we have, etc., we're going to have assured income. And could we count on that $90 to $100 per month in wages? We thought you'd be heavy worked for more than the year, but Lou feels he can work up something too aside from what you have to do, and with this nice weather, we're anxious to begin the change. As for how much we'd have to get us there, we'd need my train fare home since Lou expects to stay on a short time, unless you decide you need him in a hurry, and should we find some unexpected things, we figure $100 will get us out of here if you'll pay the movers there. The house, of course, is the really big project, and that, too, is largely your problem, since we won't have any money to buy outright. If a nice enough house is to be had under the GI Bill, we'd have to ask for down payment, and then pay it off gradually. It seems as though we're leaving a lot up to you, and we realize it, too, but I hope you know that we have the very best of intentions of doing just as right by you as we possibly can. We're not coming with the idea of living off you, or being too dependent, but we do need help to get started. Once we do, we'll pay off and work off what you put up for us. As soon as you've found us a good house, we'll be ready to come, and for our part, the sooner the better. I am to go babysit, so I'll stop now and perhaps add more in the morning. We've been wondering if you have any certain house in mind, or if you just have to wait until something turns up. I know where the schoolhouse is, where Haltums live, where Lulu McFarland lives, the brothers, and some other. So if you could use them as landmarks in telling where the house is situated, I'll have a pretty good idea where it is. With this nice weather coming, we're quite anxious to know your plans as soon as you can let us know. I'm aware that often written things don't strike the major chord that spoken words do, so I hope you'll give me the benefit of any doubt you may have to my letter. Love, Sweetie.
Jean, I think I left my watch on the table by the chair. Don't drop. If we think, we will be up Thursday, Friday morning for the operation. Might drop in at number 332 at Mercy and call on the victim. Pray. Love, Papa.
I got a little Chester in there. I'm so excited.
Just a little
Can
bit.
you talk a little bit about that, Allison?
Oh, yeah. And it's been a while since we heard from Chester at all. So I know we've been saying a lot for our newer listeners, but we're getting into these different points in time. We're starting a new year here. And Chester is, of course, Sweetie's father. And that's to whom this letter is addressed, and to her mother, Laura. Now, Laura's an RN, Chester's the town doctor in a town called Lacona, and of course, Jean's an RN as well, whole medical family. He's heading to Des Moines, where Jean is, to call in a victim for an operation. So he's saying, hey, I'm in town. So naturally, they're going to cross paths Thursday or Friday, as he's saying. But rewinding back to the beginning of the letter, Sweetie's writing to her parents because there's a change happening here. And she's saying about a house and let me know where things are. They're planning on moving to Lacona. Sweetie, Lou, and Lewis are going to be heading back to Iowa. And so a lot is left in between the lines of this letter to really fill in the gaps of what's going on. And that's why I just wanted to let the letter play straight through. We get some clues as to what's going on. There seems to be some sort of opportunity out in Lacona that would cause them to go out there. We're not sure what yet. We do know that it's definitely Lacona because she wants to be close to her parents' house. And that doesn't leave many options. It's not like she's going to be in Des Moines or a neighboring town. She's asking, it's a small enough town where she's saying, where are the neighbors? So I can try to figure out what house you're going for. She's like, I still remember where some of them are. And so we know for sure that's where they're headed. The big question is why.
Yeah.
And we don't get all of the details on that in this letter just yet. We're going to get a little more details about that in the next one we're going to read, or we're going to hear from Sweetie here as she continues with her plans. But they're definitely heading out. And Jamie, this is the last letter that she writes from Norwood. Farewell to Delco, basically. So this is a big moment in the time period. Now, before we go into the next letter, we do have one historical note to make here, and I just wanted to call attention to it so that it's called out and people can happily go into the David McCullough to get more information here. Not going to go into the Truman book right now, but it is very, very important to note that the Marshall Plan goes into effect in between this letter and the next one that we're going to hear. The Marshall Plan is, of course, the ability to try to sort of revitalize post-war Western Europe by the United States funneling money into Western Europe. It's named for Marshall, who was the Secretary of State under Harry Truman, George C. Marshall. It's not, there was, in the McCullough book, they even mentioned, like, oh, maybe it should be called the Truman Plan. Well, he's already got the Truman Doctrine, and this was really Marshall's idea, so it's called the Marshall Plan. But it's going to be going on for 4 years, and that's where we're going to see even more of this idea of America trying to somehow rescue Western Europe, going in post-war to help rebuild and things like that. It's a big moment in history. David McCullough goes into it in some detail in the middle of the Truman book, so you should keep it close by during these 40s years. Can't recommend it enough. It's in the middle of the book. It's a very long book. This is directly in the middle, Marshall Plan. So just note, historically, that's going on in between these letters because we're fast forwarding 1948, and that's a big moment, big history call out. But Jamie, we're going to fast forward even more. I wanted to mention that that was in April of 48 because we don't have any letters from April of 1948, and we head straight into May. So we started episode 60 in February, and here we are in May. And that's it. Yep. Find out some more information from Sweetie here.
May 13th, 1948. Dear Jean, I'm sorry not to have written, but it is so hard to write when I'm so on the fence and have nothing definite to tell you. Though, first of all, let me say this. Don't sit at home waiting each weekend for me to come. I believe I'll know in time to let you know, but right now it looks as though I may stay here until Lou leaves the Navy and drive out together in July. Lou's mother is in Texas for 3 weeks' visit with Marguerite and Joe and her folks. She'll not be home till May 22nd, and I'm being housekeeper here. Elizabeth is to be married June 19th in a church wedding, not too big and informal, I believe, but I'm sure it is going to be very nice. They've asked me to stay for it, and I'd love to. Then it will only be 3 more weeks till Lou leaves the Navy, and if I stay, it will save my train fare, since Lou will have to buy gas anyway, and we could stop and see the relatives on the way too. Call sister and tell her I haven't forgotten them, but it is so hard to sit down and get a letter written as soon as I have any definite plan. I'll let you know at once. Sweetie.
So it's very up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff going on, and clearly she has Lou is still in the Navy, so that's a timeline that he can't leave before a certain date. And then now she's got Elizabeth's wedding.
Right. Yep. We knew about the ring. It wasn't the biggest diamond, but that's okay. She still liked the ring. We heard about that previously. So that, they're going to stay back and be there for Elizabeth's wedding. Before we get into the subject of Elizabeth's wedding, because she makes this comment, well, I don't think it's going to be too big and maybe just a church wedding, small and informal. Yeah, we'll see about that in a moment here. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure Sydney will go for that.
Well, and she also mentions that she's being housekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
So she is at Collinsdale right now.
At Collinsdale. Mm-hmm.
She's there by herself.
Mm-hmm.
Her and Lou and Lewis must be staying there. But so there's this plan to move. And it just seems like just time keeps passing and going by. Like, nothing's happening. I can assure this 6 weeks, I think, since between letters, because we had the whole month of April. No, maybe even longer. That's got to be torturous for her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like so she knows she's going to be going back to Iowa. She knows she's going to be going back to the family. It's those plans are being put in place, but then they're not being put in place.
Right. Yeah.
So, and we don't get any resolution of that in this episode either, do we?
We don't. We're not going to get resolution of that in this episode. So it's interesting. They're staying in Collingdale. They're staying at Lou's parents' home. Sydney's in Texas with Marguerite and Joe because Marguerite's mother, her family's in Texas. So we have all of this moving around. It feels very reminiscent to the beginning of season 2. It's like we knew that Sweetie was going to go to Pennsylvania, but it wasn't clear exactly when. And it just kind of was like indefinite for a long time. Now we're back to that indefinite stage, but now Lou's wrapped up in it. Like, I don't know, he's leaving the Navy. That's huge for Lou. And it's not like he's going back to Ottumwa, because at this time period, Ottumwa is not as active. So, it's like they're not going back there. They're not going back to Kansas. They're going back to Lacona. What is the Navy sailor going to do? I mean, he's a mechanic. He can do that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's interesting as we fill in the gap. We kind of understand why she didn't write in April. She had to pack up Norwood. So she's not there anymore. So there must have been that takes a long time. I moved. It took a long time. I had a lot of stuff. She had less stuff than I did, but I'm sure with Lewis there and everything else, it was just a lot to have to do all that. So hence no letters in April. But yeah, and then we hear about the wedding. So indefinite time period. We know they're moving. We'll leave what happens into episode 61 next week. So we hope people tune in next week to find out when and where they really go. But we know that we have a date for the wedding, and that's June 19th. And we know for certain that Lou and Sweetie are at the wedding because we do have photos from Elizabeth's wedding. Now, bear in mind, I decided that, I was going to switch to be wearing pearls today because that's what Sydney would have wanted. And it's just, to me, it's so adorable that Sweetie's just like, oh, maybe it'll just be informal and like super casual, like totally
No, I don't
your
think
in-laws?
it could be casual if she wanted to.
Right, exactly. Like, these are your in-laws. Like, this is Sydney, who wears pearls in the middle of the day, just sitting at home. And the diamond thing, nothing here indicates that this is going to be super casual. And we can tell that from the wedding party immediately. So here's the wedding party from June. And this is Elizabeth getting married right here. Now, we can identify some of the individuals in this photo. Luckily, we can identify the majority of the individuals in this photo. We have, of course, Elizabeth bride herself right in the center.
Absolutely beautiful. She looks gorgeous. And you can really see how she favored Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it. And she just looks stunning. And so this must be Mr. Brown.
That's Mr. Brown. Bob Brown, the groom. So now, to the right of the photo, looking past Bob Brown, these three individuals are the three that we don't know. We don't know who the woman is who's seated down front. And for our audio listeners, these pictures are going to be on the website. Go to www.lovesweetiepodcast.com into the photo galleries. I'll make sure we have a special call out there for Elizabeth's wedding. And I'll also put it on Elizabeth's page on her on the family tree and timeline. So when you click into her information, you'll see her wedding photos. These are friends, we believe, of the groom. Now, I did check in with my father on this because there was an idea that maybe the woman who was seated was Marguerite. This is not Marguerite, for anybody that wanted to definitively know that that was not her on the right. But
but I'd like to point out here, the men are all dressed in these lovely suits. You would actually, I could imagine seeing, well, maybe not, because they've got big tails. This looks very similar to something that might be worn today. You know, the gentleman who's on the farthest obviously didn't know how to tie his tie because it's different, and that bothers me. But it really does.
It does,
yeah, but it's okay. They all look very dapper. They look wonderful. The women, you can see the woman who's pictured here, not the bride. You can see like the time, like what bridesmaid, she was probably a bridesmaid, what they wore at that time period. So you can kind of get a good, this is a nice example of what a 40s wedding would look like.
Right. I do wonder, however, remember there was that story about Elizabeth having her friend over and then Lou handing it the shell of the locust and her screaming? I do wonder, is that the girl? Is that the friend of Elizabeth's who screamed when handed the locust shell?
I don't know. Maybe. Does she look like the kind of person that's squeamish? Maybe.
I don't know. So I wonder. Maybe. Just maybe. And then, of course, on the other side, we get the three siblings together.
Okay. And see, now Lou didn't tie his tie right either. So Joe did. Yeah. But that was not the right way. So, weird.
Guys, anyway, straight out your top.
Look. She's looking. She's like, darn it, Lou, you didn't tie your tie right. But I want to say, too, like Lou and Joe look stunning, beautiful.
They look stunning.
Like, this is such a lovely picture of the siblings at that time. Oh, so lovely. But so we got to see, this is a very nice picture. So she got married, and I think that probably was not informal.
Yeah, that doesn't look informal to me with the tuxes with tails. That's like black tie, basically. Full gown church wedding. Yeah. No, sweetie, this is not cash.
Joe's in his element right now. Look at him.
Yes.
I was born to wear this.
This is my Hollywood garb. So, we're going to have some more information about Joe and Hollywood coming up in the podcast at a future point. But Joe is an actor, and you're right. He is 100% loving to be in his dapper gentleman personality that he's clearly showing off here. And then we have another photo because that's the wedding party, but we do know that Sweetie's there for the wedding as well. And we have to see the three of them together, of course. Of course we do. So here we go. And I love this photo. This is so great. Yeah.
He looks so pretty.
Yeah.
She doesn't look happy.
No, she doesn't.
I mean, I can't be like, oh, she's excited. But I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is. But she looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
I really do love this dress, and it always bothers me when she's like talking about her weight and stuff. Like I look at her, I'm like, I don't even know where she's getting that from.
Yep.
And you can see just how tall Lou is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We were commenting when looking at this photo earlier. She's wearing these wonderful shoes, these wonderful heels. So that's actually making her taller in this photo. So she would actually be a little shorter here. And little Louis there with his suspenders and his outfit.
I can't even take his cute little face.
where Lou's probably pretty tired for being in a tux all day because he's used to being
Mhm.
a sailor, and she's probably thinking, I'd really like to be in Iowa right now.
Mhm.
This is not the
Mhm.
casual wedding I was hoping for.
Right?
Yeah,
Um,
so
yeah, I mean, and also when you have a little one like that
mhm.
at weddings, I mean, I've had little ones, I've had to chase little ones at weddings. Sometimes they're like making you run around and like getting into things, and like you got to keep them away from the cake and that various thing.
Yeah.
But Lewis looks utterly adorable. And he's standing there being a good boy. He probably was very
Mhm.
good at the wedding too, and probably was very cute. And we've talked about shoes. I've talked about shoes before because I
Mhm.
just love the 40s style. I think it
Yeah.
looks so good and comfortable. I'm
Mhm.
like, man, I really want a pair of those shoes.
Yeah, yep.
But yeah, so this is a nice picture of them. She got to stay for the wedding.
Mhm.
Oh, and I'm really glad that we don't have anything really too many other ones, do we? Just this.
No, pretty much just this. Yeah, they were focused very much on the bride family and all of that
Mhm.
that was going on that day. But it's nice that they got to stay.
Yes.
But before they leave they have this happy moment. She was excited for it, so I'm sure she's probably a bit tired at this point in the day. I'm sure they had a nice time, at the wedding. And she likes Bob Brown. Bob Brown was a
Mhm.
very, very nice man. We do have some feedback from Lewis himself, remembering Mr. Brown, that he was a nice gentleman. So, and we can see it.
I was gonna say, he looks like he's pleasant. He
Yeah.
looks like he's and
Mhm.
he got Elizabeth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, that's nice that she was able to find, her
Mm-hmm.
husband,
Yeah.
and it's lovely that Sweetie could be there for the wedding, and that Lou
Yeah.
could be there for the wedding as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, we know like they've been talking about it for months. You have to
Right.
wonder what the Graham side of the family felt about him moving back to Iowa.
Yeah. I really do wonder about that, and what Lou himself feels about moving back to Iowa. He's been there before. He knows it's gonna be tough. Like we know he's a sailor. This guy is a sailor. Now, he might not have been on a boat too much during World War II, but he is definitely used to being close to the water.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, and this is really the question that we're going to answer in the next episode. So, sort of teasing as we look at episode 61, which is going to fast forward through the rest of 1948. And then before we know it, we're in 49 in episode 62. The question really becomes, is this going to work? We know at the beginning of season 2, she didn't want to leave. She just wanted to stay in Iowa. This is the test. Can this actually work? And we're going to answer that question in episode 61. So I think we're just going to leave it at that, Jamie. I think we leave it with the wedding, with the beautiful, beautiful photos here. We'll get these on the website again to our audio listeners. You definitely want to see these photos because you get to see the style of the 40s wedding, the big wedding, the totally formal, so not casual wedding of Elizabeth. And the stunning photo of Lou in a tux. I do believe it's probably one of the only photos I've ever seen of Lou in a tux because he would prefer to keep things casual as well.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, yeah, so congrats to Elizabeth
Mm-hmm.
on her wedding.
And good luck to Sweetie and Lou.
See you next week.